Hey everybody, welcome back to the Infuse Your Future podcast, the place where we bring together people and ideas who are making a positive difference in the world. I'm your host, Dr. C. Well, let's get right into today's episode, which is all about crisis. And now a lot of people are like, why are you doing an episode about crisis? Well, it's because today we're going to learn how to make a crisis an opportunity. Because, let's face it, you guys, crises are an inevitable part of life. You can have a personal crisis, a global crisis, whatever it is, it can be challenging to navigate these situations. We don't want them, but no matter who we are, eventually we're going to have them. And if you're a trauma survivor, you really know what a crisis is. The real question is, what do we do with that trauma or crisis? We can let it defeat us, keep us down and out, keep us hidden, allow it to victimize us. Or we can use it as a fulcrum for growth and resilience. I believe it was Winston Churchill that once said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." One of our most important tools as human beings is called reframing. And in trauma recovery, reframing can really help rewire our minds so that we live richer, fuller lives with less anxiety, less depression, less everything. Reframing a crisis as an opportunity is a powerful mindset that can dramatically change our quality of life by leading to growth and improvement rather than victimization. Let's explore why this is so important and how we can use crises as catalysts for positive change. Well, first, a lot of times it's a wake-up call. It forces us to take a step back and reevaluate our lives, our goals, and our priorities. We can use it to realize that maybe we were really taking things for granted or that we needed to make changes in order to better handle future challenges. Crises can shake us out of complacency and help us see the world in a new light. Take a health crisis, for example. A lot of us have had these. Maybe we're a workaholic, we're going through life full speed, we don't take the time to exercise or eat healthy, and then suddenly, bam. Right? You have a heart attack or a stroke or get a cancer diagnosis or break a leg or whatever it is. And certainly this is a crisis. But many people are able to use these opportunities to change their lives in a healthier way. One example, I love to use the triathlete examples because I've done a few, but there are so many examples of people becoming triathletes as they beat the couch potato lifestyle. And if you don't know what a triathlon is, it's basically 3 sports at the same time. Usually it's a swim, bike, and a run. So you do all 3 in the same race. And this experience can be very deeply spiritual and rewarding. Athletes tend to be people with growth mindsets, positive mindsets. There's a lot of camaraderie. And if you become a triathlete, you're going to be joining a group of really badass athletes. And this can certainly turn a crisis into a newer, richer lifestyle. Second, we can use a crisis to help us build resilience. Nobody wants a crisis, and we don't want to wish it on people if we're a good person. But as I said before, we all meet up with some. And when this happens, we have choices. Are we going to wither under its weight? Are we going to allow it to victimize us? Or are we going to use it to adapt and heal and make us stronger? Every time we do this, we're better able to cope with future challenges. So let's take a person who's faced significant adversity in their lives, like poverty, abuse, illness, but then they were able to overcome these challenges and build successful and fulfilling lives. They dug deep, they sought out their healers or other teachers to help them navigate the difficult circumstances. They adapted, managed their stress, and maintained a positive outlook. They probably used a variety of strategies to help build their resistance, probably support from friends or family, self-care, developing really good coping skills, staying focused on their goals, And over time, as they overcame their challenges, they became an inspiration to others in their lives and demonstrated that even in the face of a significant challenge, it's possible to overcome adversity and build a rewarding life. And of course, we all know people in our lives that have done this. And probably one of the most used examples would be somebody like Oprah Winfrey. If you know anything about her life, you know how much of a struggle it was, how much trauma she had in her early life. And she didn't let it victimize her. She fought, and now she's a global icon. Finally, a crisis can be a catalyst for positive change. I mean, let's face it, you guys, when things are going well, why would we make significant changes? We're comfortable. So when we're forced to confront a crisis, we're going to tend to be open to trying new things or taking risks that we wouldn't have considered before. You know, for example, a business that's struggling due to a crisis can use it as an opportunity to pivot, maybe become a new business, create a new business model, explore new markets, maybe totally reinvent themselves. And of course, many of us experienced this during the global COVID pandemic. Many people lost their jobs or had significant business losses and really had to retool their lives to survive. And a lot of these people came out of the pandemic actually stronger, with stronger businesses, better businesses, healthier lifestyle, and better overall mental and physical health. And I can say this hit home for me when I used the pandemic to begin pivoting my career to coaching. And I really have to say the depth of growth and experience that stemmed from this pivot is just priceless. I've met so many amazing people through this process and had such deep spiritual growth and really found a deeper purpose for my life. So, how can we make sure we don't let a good crisis go to waste? Well, here are 4 tips. Take time to reflect, be open to change, use the crisis as an opportunity to grow, and reach out for support. So, time to reflect. Think about this. I mean, when we're in the middle of a crisis, that's not the time to start these things because we're in crisis mode. And if you haven't practiced this during the times of calm and stability, then it's going to be harder to get through that crisis. So, take time to reflect every day on things that you've learned, things that you can apply to your life that can be valuable. And we all need to take time out to evaluate our lives and how it's going because our bodies need periods of rest to recharge. Some of my favorite ways to reflect are walking in nature, scenic drives, listening to my favorite music, chatting with great friends, taking a warm shower, or a fun game on the iPad. Also, be open to change because a crisis can be a great time to try new things or make changes you would have been hesitant to make before when everything was calm. Don't be afraid to take risks and explore new opportunities. You know, I'd wanted to dabble in coaching for years before the pandemic hit, but, you know, why would I do that when I had a career and a family and no time, right? But when the pandemic hit, it kind of shook me out of my comfort zone and helped me make that pivot. So then I was able to use the opportunity to try this new thing, and I started this podcast, which is something I wouldn't have even considered 5 years ago, and I absolutely love it. Now, third, using crises as an opportunity to grow. And we've already talked about this a little bit even in this podcast, but instead of viewing a crisis as a setback, see it as an opportunity to become stronger and more resilient. Use the experience as a way to develop your skills and learn new things. Every one of my life crises has led to personal growth. You know, in an effort to battle my chronic pain, I became more physically active, and that's, you know, when I got back into the triathlons and completed a couple of smaller triathlons. And I mean, let's be honest, I would never wish chronic pain on anyone, But since I had it and I couldn't avoid it, I've had to embrace it, and I can say that it has been a gift, a real gift. It's led me on a spiritual journey that has left me more personally fulfilled. And another challenge in my own life was developmental trauma. For years, I just suffered from it, and I finally decided to pivot and get a handle on it. And in doing so, I ended up earning a certification in trauma recovery coaching. This is another process that I had the opportunity to meet and interact with a really vast, diverse group of people that I never would have had the opportunity to meet and interact with otherwise. And the experience was just profound and priceless, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Finally, don't forget to reach out for support. This is so important. We're social creatures. And during a crisis, it's really important to lean on your support network. This could be friends, family, colleagues, mental health professionals, whoever you need to. Just don't be afraid to ask for help or guidance when you need it. My developmental trauma eventually led me to being more vulnerable with people and more trusting of friendships. And like I said, we're social creatures, so isolation makes trauma much more challenging to bear. Really, the simple act of being able to talk to someone about our crises is often enough to help us start moving out of it. Pete Walker talks about this in his book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. And I want you guys to remember, and this is probably the most important concept of this podcast episode, our most important friend and ally is ourselves. We got to show up for ourselves the most. We have to be our biggest cheerleader, our biggest supporter. So give yourself grace, especially if you're going through a crisis or trauma. Don't let yourself beat yourself up. Talk to that inner critic and let it know that, while it's welcome, you want to work with it so that it can help you avoid dangerous situations, but that it's got to stop beating you up. All right, I know we touched on a lot today, so let's sum it up. While a crisis can be challenging and difficult, it's also an opportunity for growth and positive change. By taking the time to reflect, be open to change, grow, and reach out for support, we can make sure we don't let a good crisis go to waste. So, here's my call to action today. Share an experience about a time in your life where you turned an obstacle or a crisis into an opportunity and created a richer experience for it. Now, when you share this experience, it could be just writing it in your own journal. It could be sharing it with your best friend or your coach or your therapist or a spouse or family member. It could be creating a piece of art around it. Whatever floats your boat. You can also feel free to share it below or send me an email about your journey at infuseyourfuture@aol.com. I can't wait to hear your stories. And once again, thank you so much for listening to and supporting me in this podcast. I'd love it if you could share it with a couple of your friends and family to help it grow. And as always, have a good one. Bye.